walking reel.
I'm a walking reel. All right.
You're a walking reel. We won't get into it right now, though.
That's good to hear. Well, Broncos country. Let's get Facebook in here first before we do it. Boom, boom. There we go. If it'll load. There's one, and give it a second to breathe. Come on. There we go. Welcome in, everybody. It is a special Friday morning show following the Broncos demolition, destruction, belt to you-know-what of the New Orleans Saints yesterday. Welcome in, Broncos country. I'm at Kendell, joined by Scott Kennedy. Scott, that felt like Alabama versus Citadel. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. It was a completely outmatched, and it was good to be on the other end of that for once. People make excuses. Are we going to take a lot of takeaways from this, big picture? Maybe not, but if Denver's going where we want them to go, they need to take care of teams that are decimated like the Saints were, and boy, did they.
It was professional. It was a professional grade win is what it was. As Sean Payton said afterwards, he's like, listen, you play the people they put in front of you. There's no apologies. Yeah, I have a lot of good feelings for them, for Dennis Allen, et cetera, but our job is to go out and win football games. And you're not taking cheap shots or anything like that, or run up the score or anything like that, but you took care of business efficiently and professionally, and it shows that Denver is a good football team. They're a good football team to go in there. And it's not about, it's just the Saints, calm down. No. A bad football team goes in and plays down to their level and ends up being in a close game, in a one-score game at the end. A good football team goes in and efficiently, methodically, professionally takes care of business. And that's what the Broncos did.
Yeah, and with a win like this is I kept calling it a fork in the road game for the Broncos this season, because if you lose this one, obviously we didn't know the Saints would look this bad. But if you lose this one, you're probably sitting there, I don't know, 7 wins this season, probably between, pick 16 to 10. You win this one, you're now, feeling good. You got the mini bye, right? And I'm not saying this is a playoff team, but you take care of the Saints, obviously. You're hoping to take care of the Panthers next week. We're going to see how the culture is and how disciplined this team is. After a big win and a little bye, it'd be easy to come out flat.
The bye is good for that.
Yeah.
The bye is good for that. We talked about this because we just watched a team come off a big emotional win and then go play the Panthers on the road. And it's good to, get home, rest, flush it, and get back to work on Tuesday against a team that wants to be on vacation. The Panthers don't want to be there. Well, send them. Let them. Don't give them any hope, because winning is fun. Dominating an opponent, winning your blocks, that's fun. Don't let them have any fun. They don't want to have fun. They want to go home.
Yeah. Cancun on 3.
It's a very similar opponent coming up, and their defense is just as decimated, man. I mean, the Panthers weren't good healthy. The Saints are good healthy. The Panthers stink, and they're a train wreck. Send them along their way, and you're 5-3. And yes, Nick, we can start at 5-3. We can start talking playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have arguably your toughest stretch of games after the Panthers game, because you obviously go on the road back-to-back at Baltimore and at Kansas City. Are arguably 2 of the 3 best teams in the AFC. To have them on the road as back-to-back. Maybe you steal one. I don't know, but you have a chance for sure. So good to see Denver take care of business here. We'll break down the specifics of the game, what we liked, what we didn't like, et cetera, et cetera. But first, we got Ian coming in. Ian Levin, $2, says Bo knows, Knicks for 6, Bo leaving, a win for Pookie. Yeah, I know a lot of people were, calling for Estime, right? The shiny new thing. The common cliche is the most popular guy in town is the backup quarterback, but for Denver leading up to this game, it felt like more the backup running back. But Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin on just 4 carries, very efficient, explosive, and Denver made New Orleans look like the worst rush defense in football that they were the 4 games coming into this.
Yeah, and he does so many different things, and it was one of those where this team was finished. About midway through the second quarter, they're just trying to get out of there. It's like they're not obviously making business decisions, but they're not putting it all out on the line either. My God, the last thing you want to see coming at you is Javonte Williams with a head of steam when you're just like, dude, I just want to go home. I want to get out of here without hurting anything. And here comes this dude who's a freaking jackhammer. Say what you want to about his ability and some of his shortcomings this year. The dude is strong. And the Denver Broncos were dominating the lines of scrimmage, and Javonte Williams was getting ahead of steam. If he's getting ahead of steam and you're having to tackle him with safeties, it's going to hurt. He's going to make you hurt.
Yeah, without a doubt. It was good to see them get out there and win. And, this was a good game to not have Surtain in, right? I was really impressed with, obviously, the pass rushers. Nick Bonito gets his 5th sack in 5 subsequent games, which is the best streak for the Broncos, I believe, since Von Miller in 2018. You see Zach Gallen getting after it, John Franklin Myers. I mean, they really, Spencer Rattler, he's a slippery little you-know-what, because they could have had, 10 more sacks on this game. They were getting after it. I know that the Saints are really dinged up on the offensive line, but again, you play who's in front of you, and it's not just Denver who's going to get opponents this season who are decimated and bad football teams. It levels out over a long enough sample size, so nobody should make excuses or, put an asterisk on if the Chiefs did this, right? They're supposed to do that. Denver's supposed to do this too against this Saints team.
In 17 games, you're allowed to stat pad. That comes across it. Again, at the end of the year, the table is the table. The
Yes.
numbers are the numbers. Everybody's going to get a chance to play a team that is not at their best. That's okay. Yeah. Here's what's interesting to me, and we'll get to Troy. Troy, appreciate your patience. We talked about when you don't have someone getting – Nick Bonito is starting to be that guy now. But when you don't have somebody getting 15 sacks – you're scheming up pressure. You know how many different, you may have seen this, Nick, but if not, well, I'm sure not everybody has. Do you know how many different players have sacks for the Denver Broncos this year?
I think it's 12.
It's 12. It's 12. Do you know the Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons combined? And I think the Panthers, I don't know if they had a bye week or not. They may have 11 games, but let's just say 11 games just to be safe. They have 11 sacks combined. And the Broncos have 12 different people making sacks. We talked about, do you have a ready-made replacement for Vance Joseph? You might need one.
Yeah.
You might need one, because this Denver Broncos defense, when you start talking about, I got 12 different guys getting sacks, that's scheme. I don't have 12 pass rushers. That's not just personnel. That's everybody buying in and doing their jobs, and that's scheming up pressure. And by God, Nick, it's working. This Denver Broncos defense is nasty.
Yeah. Obviously not the best game against the Chargers, but they were kind of, spinning on their heads a bit after Surtain goes down.
You're not always gonna be the 85 Bears against the Patriots. Even the 85 Bears weren't the 85 Bears like they were against the Patriots.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So they also, the offense did them 0 favors in that game. But Troy comes in and says, hey, guys, Nick's look rough again, but I'll take any win where he gets experience. D look great. Welcome to the party run game. What is your number one player to target for a trade? For me, I'm still leaning on Njoku. I think it'd be my number one. Now, granted, his contract, who knows? But I need a tight end who actually can function in line. I don't need Evan Ingram, who's a glorified big slot. Right, like I would rather just have a wide receiver there than a tight end. So you have little Jordan Humphrey, Devon Bailey. I mean, that's your big slot, which would, I think, a lot of overlap with Ingram. So I would like Njoku, but I think it's just as likely the Broncos stand pat. We'll see what happens here, but I mean, what are the moves they're going to make, Scott? It feels like this is still a team. You're feisty. You're hoping to make the playoffs this season, but you're still going out there and playing the young guys. This is still somewhat of a compete while evaluating and developing season.
Yeah, it would be. I put this in the chat last night, and Chad Reese, Chad does a good job of keeping me involved, making me feel like part of the show when I'm behind the scenes. I said this last night, Troy, and Broncos country. You can be buyers at the trade deadline, but you're not getting a rental. You're not going after somebody that is finishing their contract, and a team like the Panthers is trying to dump salary. We want to get rid of this guy, and maybe we can get a 5th round pick back for him and get $4 million in salary cap that we can put next year. You don't want that guy. You're not in that space yet as the Denver Broncos, where you're like, okay, we want a rental so we can do what? I don't think this is a hot take to say I don't think you're a Super Bowl team. And that's where you would look for a rental, possibly, unless it was I can get this guy and immediately, I've pretty much already agreed to an extension, Nick. I'm going to sign him. But if you trade for a guy, it needs to be a guy that you can keep for 2, 3, 4 years down the line and not just for the rest of this season. But wide receiver is still number one on my shopping list. I just don't know how viable that is this time. And it might be easier and cheaper to get a tight end, like Nick's saying. The non-premium position would upgrade this team a lot.
Yeah, and it was good to see Lucas Kroll get involved in this game. I wish he's a big guy, but he is, what's the word I'll use? He's pretty passive as a blocker. And Troutman, I kind of feel bad for him because he was the one who was wide freaking open when Bo, hit between the two wide open guys. And also, I don't know if the ball was tipped or not, but he was wide open. It would have probably been a touchdown. And it was an incompletion to the right as well, wide freaking open. But I mean, heck, Scott, for the way this team wants to run, I know that nobody loves him. He's not a big difference maker, but if I could get a second Adam Troutman, who's at least, a Jag out there, but he's a Jag who can play in line, right? And I think this is a team that wants to play 12 personnel, but you don't have a second tight end who can really function in that 12 personnel look right now. I mean, you got Atkins, who's like kind of a H-back, fullback tight end piece. He's useful, but he's not really, your classic, an additional inline guy. And Kroll has the body, but not really the blocking play right now to be that guy. And Dulcich is definitely not that guy.
Neither but I do love seeing a 260-pound dude in the secondary with the ball and watching guys try and carry him, tackle him, and as he's dragging people forward for 5, 6 extra yards. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff that won't show up in analytics. It's the kind of stuff that gets players fired up, though.
Yeah,
it's the tight end and fullback. Again, I grew up in the 80s and 90s where the two main dynasties were the I formation San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys with tight ends, big receivers, running backs, fullbacks. And there's just something diabolical about watching one of those guys get loose in the secondary and to start trucking dudes. So it fires everybody else up. This is an emotional game. Mm-hmm. And imposing your will on somebody else, it doesn't show up in the analytics. It doesn't show up. But God, you can tell when it happens. Miguel, good to see you, brother. He says, good morning, fellas. Right back at you. I would have loved to see more out of the pass game, but so happy to see the run game take off. Great to see. And what about the anonymous defense? We're passing around names. The no name was already taken. I think that was the no name defense. I was like, who was that? That was actually the perfect Miami Dolphins team had the no name defense. And someone said the headless horseman. What the faceless horseman? We'll go a little John Cena on that. You can't see me. The faceless horseman out there. Because we don't know who they are. None of them are necessarily names, especially if Surtan's out there. Yeah. But the passing game, we can get into that. I highlighted String Guy's comment because I did want to get into that as soon as we took care of some of our supers also. Yeah, you want to see more out of the passing game. And last night it looked like one of the things we've been begging for since we watching the game in person was spread the field. Do not try and play these guys in a phone booth. Spread the field. And they did that right away. And the passing game ended up being outside in. What was working, Nick, in the passing game? Slants.
Yep.
Slants. And then you'd swing guys out behind those guys, but you had big wide receivers with slants coming in. And Vele is dragging guys for 6 yards down the field. He's a unit.
6'5", 215 or something. Yeah, he's big, old,
spread out the RPO, and then I can impose my will on this team with the running game. Okay, if the passing game doesn't work, it worked enough that I got guys backed off, and now I've got McGlinchey back. I think Forsythe is serviceable.
He had a good game.
I don't think he's someone in the comments, I don't remember who it was, apologies, but was like, Scott, no, you were wrong. He was pretty bad. I'm like, listen, my level of manhandled goes back to 2021, Dalton Reisner and Lloyd Cushenberry. That was manhandled. He was better than that. I'm like, so my bar's pretty low when it comes to what crappy interior line play looks like with the Denver Broncos 2021. So it wasn't perfect. It's never gonna be. It's never gonna be perfect, Nick.
Yeah. And speaking of not perfect, really the only thing I can come out of this game saying that wish it was better was Bo Nix's accuracy and play in the pocket. I mean, we can highlight it over and over again, right? He just looks pretty frantic right now, a little jittery, a little too amped up, and it's causing footwork issues, which is leading to scattershot accuracy. I mean, there's some throws that aren't even close. So we're pretty lucky that no turnovers in this one as well. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's turnabout is fair play because Cody Barton dropped one right in the numbers. So Tyrann Mathieu does the same thing. But again, the athleticism right now and the run game paired with the defense is giving you margin for Bo Nix not to be perfect in the pocket right now and still win games. Now, obviously, there's going to be a cap on this. I mean, we saw it last week, right? They took away the run game, and now it's on the drop back pass game. We can't move the freaking football or score. But it is something that's going to need to continue to be worked on. One thing I love the optimism, Broncos country. Just because Bo Nix gets more time to figure that out doesn't mean he will, right? That's a lot of the sentiment. It's just like, oh, the more games you play, linear development. No, that's not how reality works. He may always be a frantic kind of pocket quarterback and not get the accuracy down, but it is something that's correctable. He's not like, you can't make Bryce Young taller. You can't make Joe Flacco a better athlete, those kind of guys. So he's got the baseline tools to be a good quarterback, and it is something that's correctable. Doesn't mean it will get corrected to the level of him being a perennial top 10 quarterback. Excuse me, but it can for sure. So String Guy says, good morning, Scott and Nick. What's going on with Nick's mechanics? Sometimes he looks fine, then he just looks totally off. It's the pocket presence, the footwork. It's just not repeatable right now. It's not like Peyton Manning. It was almost robotic, right? And sometimes that's like in a bad way, but it was so repeatable that like if you put like footprints, like what is it, the old school like dance mats, Scott, where you kind of learn all the steps and stuff, he would hit that every time without even looking. Bo Nix, especially in a clean pocket, he's drifting, he's getting off, he's looking like he hits the back of his drop. It's hardly ever on time. On the slants, it was in this game, but a lot of them, he's not hitting that back drop and firing the ball in time or rhythm. And he's looking to escape, which, again, that's a get out of jail free card right now for the offense, but it's something that they need to work on and hopefully gets better. I mean, it's definitely frustrating. I think they showed in the game, Broncos quarterback coach Davis Webb just reaming Bo Nix there after one of the incompletions, because it's stuff that I'm sure they're working on. I mean, if we can see it, Scott, of course the coaches see it. Of course, Bo Nix sees it too. Mm-hmm. One reason that it's not a guarantee that it gets fixed as well. But yeah, it's something that we're watching, and that's the biggest thing probably down the stretch of the season as far as Bo Nix goes. Pocket passing, footwork leading to better accuracy and rhythm in the pass game.
String Guy, I think the one for me, and as Nick is saying, because it all goes in hand. When you talk about a pocket passer when he's under pressure, what is the phrase you hear all the time, Nick? What does he do?
Keeps his eyes downfield.
Steps up in the pocket.
Balanced.
Right?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, he steps up in the pocket. Where Nick's footwork, this is Nick, where Bo's footwork is breaking down, is going forward, actually. When he's going forward, he's not driving off of his back foot when he's throwing. He's wrong-footed. Mm-hmm. And was it the Steelers where they had that trick play?
Yeah.
Where he underthrew the guy and someone made, I don't remember what it was, but we came in here. It was in the chat. It was like, oh, there's that arm. If he had a better arm, I was like, that really wasn't about an arm. As he steps up, and I see it. My daughter did it playing softball. She would throw off the wrong foot every single time. And you basically just had to say, okay, back foot, drive off your back foot. Point with your foot and throw right over your foot. That's where you're going to go. When he steps up, when he's rolling out and starts moving forward, he's not throwing off his back foot. He's not driving off his back foot, and that's costing him. And when he moves up in the pocket as a pocket passer, he's not driving off his back foot when he throws, and that's what's costing him his accuracy. That's fixable. That's not that hard to fix. I mean, he might not have had to at the collegiate level, so it's like, listen, it's working. We don't want to mess with it. But it's one of those, Nick, where we tell guys as they're young, I'd rather see you do it right and miss. I'd rather see, do it right and be bad for a little while. That's okay. I know it's not comfortable, but you can't keep doing it the way you're doing as competition gets tougher. Mm-hmm. So figure it out. I'm not a coach. I can see what's wrong. This is what's wrong. I don't know how to fix that other than repetition, where he steps up and drives off his back foot until it just becomes second nature. But String Guy, that's to me where it's breaking down the most commonly is when he's moving forward. Whether it's
Yeah.
I'm rolling and then take a step towards the line of scrimmage, or if I move up in the pocket, he's throwing off his wrong foot.
And something the best pocket quarterbacks have that Nix just doesn't have right now is that feel in the pocket as well, Scott, while staying balanced and keeping the eyes downfield, right on a lot of drop back concepts, especially the longer drops, 5-7 steps. He'll hit the back of the ball, double clutch, kind of like bounce around for a second, and then look to peel out left or the right side. Rather than, you watch CJ Stroud, who's honestly playing quarterback as good as anybody right now. There's like a force field around him. He just kind of floats around in the pocket while staying balanced, and it's chaos around him. That Texans offensive line is terrible, but he's able to find the space while keeping his eyes still going through progressions and staying balanced and proper mechanics in his base as well while doing it. And that's just something right now. That's top level stuff. I mean, the best I've ever seen do it is Tom Brady. It's something we talked a lot about with going from Desmond Ridder to Kirk Cousins with the Falcons as well, because Ridder, just a stick back there, where Cousins, will really do a good job buying time within the pocket, what you need to do if you're going to be a pocket quarterback. So it's something to work on for sure. That said, again, I keep coming back to it. It's the get out of jail free card as far as the athleticism, which has surprised me. I didn't think he'd look that good of an athlete against NFL level defenders. And he's running linebacker speed out there. I mean, and he's strong as well, breaking tackles, not taking sacks. So it'd be nice, again, a little bit better within structure, within the drop back pass game with better timing. I don't think that's all Nix. Also, this team, you talk about wide receiver, Scott, they just don't have like separators right now, like route runners. You got downfield separators, you got the big body guys, but where are your like route craftsman types? You don't have that guy on the roster right now. So that kind of impacts the rhythm drop back passing game as well. But again, the run game, the toughness, not letting the first quarter where he had scatter shot accuracy completely tank the rest of the game. I think he's got some fortitude out there to be that poor in the pass game. I mean, you could see some quarterbacks, people out there, after missing that Troutman Franklin one that was an easy, you're never going to see a guy more open than that, and to have two on the same field, what the hell? Some quarterbacks that would unravel them, and you see that compound into mistake after mistake. Didn't really feel that from Nix. He made a mistake there, obviously, and got a little better. But the athleticism, the run design, Scott, how long have we been calling for like utilizing Nix in the actual design? Not just scrambles. It's nice that you have that ability, but using him as a weapon in the run game.
I can't do that if I've got my splits cut down to the hash marks.
No.
I can't, because everybody's there. It's like, okay, I got this edge a bit, but wait, I'm looking at 3 defensive backs that are here because my wide receivers are lined up 2 yards off tackle. You can't run that. God, we've been begging. Beginning of the season was begging. Spread the field. Get everybody, quit playing. I've said it a zillion times. I'll stop y'all. Yeah. Don't play in a phone booth with this team, especially against the Steelers. That was moronic.
Yeah. Also, Nix is not good enough in the under center drop back game right now. Drew Brees talked about it a bit. He's like, he needs to be able to do that and be able to run the pass game when his back's to the line of scrimmage.
Play action. I can read the tackle from the shotgun.
Yeah, the shotgun.
I can read the end coming in, crashing down, and then take off behind him if he crashes in. You can still run options from out of there, and then I can roll and throw if I need to. I mean, so all of that is part. You can't do any of that when you're looking at 11 guys between the hash marks.
Yeah, pretty hard to do.
Spreading the field does wonders for this Denver Broncos team. Christopher RB coming in, doing wonders for us this morning. He says, dominant win, field goal them to the ground. Go Broncos. That's all you needed, though, is just keep the pressure on. Just be a boa constrictor with this team, with that defense. Because once Spencer Rattler gave up the turnover, he was done. Talking about, the mental fortitude of I can make a mistake and go back out there and I can flush it. I can be a goldfish, play like a cornerback and have a short memory. Rattler was done. It's like it came out. You see the arm talent that's there. The dude's got a wonderful arm.
Yeah.
But you see the hesitancy too of why, okay, he's not ready. We've seen players like this, that it's like once you rattle them, no pun intended, they're done. They have trouble getting back on that way. Yeah. But it was a dominant win across the board. By mid-second quarter, me and Nick are texting each other. I'm like, dude, this thing's over.
Yeah.
Their offense is finished and you're running the ball. Now it's just a matter of time.
Yep. and it was a complete team win. Did want to highlight as well. It's something that, honestly, Scott, as I'm sure it drives you nuts too, but as somebody who like absolutely adores trench play and offensive line play, the finger pointing at the Broncos offensive line as the issue for the Broncos issues on offense, I think has been coming from a place of ignorance for people watching, looking for an excuse for quarterback issues and pass game issues. This was a game where obviously this is a unit that's should be a little bit better in the run design, and you've had a lot of injuries, but my God, they belt to you know what, like I talked about earlier. I mean, even this might have been like Power's best game, seeing him out there hitting blocks on the second level. Forsyth had a good game to the point where it's like maybe we have a competition there again with Wattenberg because he was struggling overall, and to have McGlinchey back. I know that last season, especially with talking about issues with pocket presence and holding the ball too long and taking too deep of drops to make the angle difficult, everybody was kind of on McGlinchey last year. McGlinchey made such a huge difference in this game, Scott. He was wiping out defenders in the run game in this one, and a pretty good pass protection game too. Now, is he a top 10 offensive tackle in the NFL? No, those guys aren't hitting the free agency market, but I think he's a top half the league right tackle and competent, and you were running behind him, and you felt his presence. I love having Alex Palczewski here. It's good to have that guy as a swing tackle, undrafted free agent tackle. That's an incredible find by that college scouting department. But McGlinchey has a different level of power in him in the run game, and it made a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, again, making huge difference for us. Coach Chris says, good morning. Okay, can we move Browning to the bench and keep Bonito out there? Burton showed up big last night. He was everywhere. Linebacker had a huge night, that's for sure. And Browning was just getting back. Browning's a pretty good football player, and having the rotation out there. But Bonito is turning into a dude. I mean, he's getting there every time. It's like you can disappear for half the game, and if you make a sack, you're going to finish with 17 sacks, and you're going to make $20 million. He's doing more than that, for sure. He's impacting the game multiple times a game, and Bonito is turning into a really good player, and harks back to what we talked about when you drafted him.
Yeah.
If he was the finished product with 4.5 speed, he wouldn't have been available at 60. He was a project. It's going to take a little time. We got to get him in the weight room, but by God, he's got the traits. He's got speed that a lot of guys aren't going to have. And you're banking on that. You plant it, give it a little fertilizer, a little water, and put him in the sunshine. By God, he's growing now. He's growing because he's had the speed, the traits that you're not going to have the perfect edge defender at the end of the second round. He doesn't exist. But he had speed to put him in the first round, even if he was lacking some of the other things. And with a little time and a little love, boy, it's coming together for him.
Yeah, he is. This was also a great game for him because you had the lead, right? So how much were the Saints actually going to run? And he's still, just given his frame and who he is, he's a below average player at the edge setting and in the run game, but he is so good with that speed rush. I mean, it's not even like he's like super speed to power or like counters across the guy. He's beating them outside, and it's crazy. It's like having it's a fastball pitcher, Scott. It's like, okay, he has the fastball. We know the fastball's coming. It's 104 miles an hour. Are you going to hit it? I don't know. Probably not.
The best pitch is still a well-placed fastball.
Yeah.
In baseball, and the old saying, speed kills. Now, I've said before, if you get beat outside by Nick Bonito, shame on you. He's still doing it. You can know it's coming and still not stop it. That's when you're special. That's when you've got something special.
Yeah, no doubt. We got Troy Morris says, if we tried to go get a better receiver or tight end, who out there is actually a possibility that would also be better than we have? Seems I scream throw the ball at Nix, but rarely does legitimately show our receivers are coded. Yeah, you have to watch the all 22 to see that. And also you have to like draw out the play too to kind of understand and watch the eyes to get the progression. It's a lot of work to go through one play. Like right? My least favorite thing is the Monday morning quarterback, and you see a guy who's not even in the progression wide open. It's like, hey, look at him, he's wide open. It's like that's not the design.
Mark Sanchez said that this week. Mark Sanchez, I don't know. We give guys enough trouble, when they do bad. There's some guys I just flat out cannot stand listening to. I think Mark Sanchez does a really good job. But he was like, there was a backside guy coming wide open on a rollout in a game I was watching that he was covering, and the guy didn't see it. He's like, well, it's easy from up here to see that. I'm playing a video game up here. But when I'm looking at three guys as I'm running to the left, no, I didn't see the guy break across on the post. He's not even in my field of vision in my play. So, but yeah, Troy, you got to see what he's looking at now. Quarterbacks will miss open guys because they don't trust themselves to make that throw or whatnot. It happens. There's no perfect game out there. But Nix, for me, I thought he played well enough. Again, I thought it was a professional win. And we're talking about, Nick, we're talking about, you're talking about the offensive line. I'm not going to judge the offensive line. Based on the first half of the season, I didn't feel like we were getting a good enough evaluation of the offensive line and Bo Nix because they're facing 11-man boxes because nobody's afraid of their offensive weapons. Yeah. Like, I don't care how good. I could have Anthony Munoz out there and name whoever you want to at across the five. And if they're having to take on 9-10 guys at a time, they're not getting anywhere. And if I just try and run right into them all the time and I can single coverage your receivers who are starting on the hash marks anyway, I can't get anywhere. Yeah. So spread them out. We see some one-on-one matchups now, 5-on-4 blocking. We see the Saints didn't have a defensive lineman that could catch Bo Nix. Just flat out didn't. And if he had a step on a linebacker, he was extending plays, getting positive yardage. Now, I might not be breaking long plays, but my slants are open. I can move the ball with the passing game, and maybe it bogs down a little bit in the red zone. That's the next step, Nick, because that's where it becomes tight. That's where everything gets crowded, and that's where we still have a problem here with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and that's something that I think with the quarterback run design stuff, you can actually account for an extra defender. And it can't be something that you're doing, this isn't college where you can have quarterback run design 15 times a game. It needs to be, 3 to 10, depending on the game flow. But it's a counterpunch that if you give them enough eye candy, I thought I would have to look at the data on this. Denver came into this game far and away the least pre-snap motion team in the NFL. And it felt like in the run designs specifically, and in some of the play action, you had an outlet that was moving before the snap, some orbit motion as well from a slot or inline guy. So that was good to see. Did want to talk, obviously, Keith Brugman coming in says a loss to the Division Chargers followed by a blowout win versus a depleted and broken Saints team. How do you value this win? P.S. My stars finally reappeared. Congrats on your stars. But how do we evaluate the win?
Congrats to us. Thanks, Keith.
Yeah, is he talking about us? Hell yeah. How do we evaluate this win? Again, you don't make excuses. Over a large enough sample size, every good team is going to go against a team like the Saints at some point this season. And God, it feels good to have the Broncos be on the end of the whip, the team that's giving, the belt versus receiving the belt. Because over the last...
Nick froze up just a second for me. We'll see if he comes back.
It definitely is a team that is moving the right direction.
You froze up, Nick. So after the belt, you started talking about whipping and the violence, and you froze up just a little bit.
It's just nice to have a Denver team that's actually winning games they're supposed to win and not being the other end of that. So that's great. One thing I also didn't want to talk about, Scott, we talked about the offensive line doing well. We've talked about Nix. Probably should talk a little bit about the running backs too, and Javonte Williams and Estime. But just when you see it in the same game, it becomes so obvious. The way the Broncos are tackling from their linebackers and secondary and coming downhill aggressively, not allowing leak yardage, and then watching the Saints who are missing tackle left and right. Credit to the Broncos. You talk about a no-name defense. You have third-round pick out there, undrafted free agent. What was Brandon Jones? Fifth-round pick, undrafted free agent with PJ Locke. Just all these guys are not premium investments, even in free agency. And they are flying to the football, really aggressive, and making just tackles. And to watch it in the juxtaposition to what the Saints are doing, excellent job by that unit. They are so cohesive, kind of, I said on Twitter, a wild pack of dogs. That's how they're playing defense on that back end right now. And they have a swagger to them. So this was obviously a very depleted Saints team. They were missing quarterback, offensive line, top 2 wide receivers. But you did what you were supposed to do. And you again, just whipped them. It was such a good job by the secondary, watch them come down and tackle.
Yeah, and Troy had that point too, kind of a question. He says, appreciate the support again, Troy. Says, why does every linebacker we plug and play great? DL, the scheme, DB's freeing them up. Seems like plug and play right now. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, Nick, other than, just to say that. And I was having this conversation about stats in high school and recruiting and evaluating. I'm like, there's guys with 120 tackles that are out of a job the next month in the NFL these days. It's like linebacker is truly, I would think it is probably the least valued position. Inside linebacker might be the least valued position in football right now.
I would say safety probably passed it this year with what we saw in the market. But yeah, linebacker, I think linebackers raised up just a little bit with how teams are playing too high and less linebackers on the field, right? It makes their job harder.
But Troy, there's not a lot of nuance to the position, scheme versus scheme versus scheme. It's find ball, get ball, or find guy, cover guy. So it's pretty easy to come in and play in that one versus a back five in a zone and a man zone. It's like, okay, he's going to do this. Do I hand him off to this guy? Do I follow him? Straight man's pretty easy. As Deion Sanders once said, I got this guy and circled his name. The communication on the back end is a lot harder. Linebackers kind of seek and destroy. It's linebacker for me is the defensive equivalent of running back. Running back is plug and play. If I sign a running back on Thursday, he could play on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Linebacker is similar that way. But playing great. This is a little bit of a different take now. It's like, what is it? They're playing great because the DL. Now, last year we were getting a lot of tackles because the DL wasn't tackling anybody.
Yeah.
This year, one improvement, everybody gets better because I'm allowed to take DJ Jones and move him outside a little bit more. I'm allowed to slide Zach Allen a little bit farther outside because I've got more bodies on the DL. Those guys were having to play a little bit farther inside than they were comfortable with last year, and it hurt the whole unit. One or two imports, and everybody got better on the DL, Nick.
Yeah. Roach. Did you see Roach in coverage?
I love Roach. That dude is a freaking gymnast.
Yeah. Did you see him in coverage, though? He had a play where he had dropped back, simulated pressure, shout out, and he was playing a hook zone.
We used to call those zone blitzes before we decided to change names.
I wasn't a blitzer. They only sent 4. But I digress.
Which 4?
I think it was a defensive back.
And you dropped the defensive lineman in coverage?
Yeah.
Zone blitz. It's been around for 40 years.
Well, anyway, if you have a chance to watch the game, Malcolm Roach in coverage, he makes a play. The guy doesn't catch the ball, and then you see Malcolm Roach buckle the seatbelt, celebrate the incompletion. And watching 97, who's built like Roach in space, and then celebrate the way he did, that was probably one of my favorite moments of the entire season so far.
I don't know if he wrestled, but you want to talk about a guy built like a freaking wrestler, like a dominant heavyweight.
Yeah,
it's that guy. Would you be surprised if he did a back handspring?
No.
If he celebrated someone with a back handspring as athletic, the guy's amazing athlete. He's 6'1" or under, isn't he?
He's stout. He's Kung Fu Panda.
That's what he looks like, and that's why those are the things we talk about. Bonito, he's only 240 pounds. He's not strong enough. That's why he falls to the second. The defensive linemen, they're 6'1". That's why he falls to the 3rd or 4th round. These guys are players, man. Find the players. Michael Ronquillo is a player for us. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Gut reaction. Good to see you, Michael. Appreciate you being here. And Jasmine, hope you are enjoying this gorgeous weather we've got here in the Southeast. Said, hi, guys. When we keep the run game going with great defensive play, Bo can continue to develop and work out the kinks. Defense and a running game plays in any era, Nick.
Yeah. If you're able to run the football like Denver is, that's something they've been really struggling to. And again, you look at the stats for some of the advanced stats. Scott, this has kind of shocked me, but Bo Nix finishes with a worse quarterback rating than Spencer Rattler in this game. Now, granted, obviously he didn't play as bad as Rattler, but the formula, and also Nix goes with the offense. Let me see the stat here. Only 4 for 11 on 3rd down, which is very much a quarterback stat. in this game. And with how the run game is, I would imagine the average yards to go is not very long. But still, you're working out the kinks. You are able to win the field position battle. And I mean, let's shout out Will Lutz. Love all those guys booing him, right? For in the game. He went to Twitter after the game and had a laugh about it. So shout out to Will Lutz going 4 for 4. But they did a good job of setting the table for Bo Nix and allowing him the wiggle room to live with the mistakes right now. So that's all you can ask for as far as the situation goes. I mean, would it be better if they had a go-to weapon in the pass game? Yeah, for sure. But this was a good game for setting up Nix to kind of go through, and the mistakes, the incompletions, they weren't catastrophic by any means.
I haven't looked at this in a while, but I seem to remember, and I was just looking at the stats. I'm like, okay, what's the big difference here? Completion percentage was a little bit higher. So I think the NFL quarterback passer rating skews a little bit too heavy towards the completion percentage. And the college was actually skewed way heavy towards like yards per completion. Mm-hmm. So like if you were 1 for 10 with 50 yards, you were better than the guy who was 9 for 10 with 60 yards. So it was way off. There's, again, the eye test stats are good. I love stats. I love analytics. I love numbers. The eye test is still number one for me. And then I'm going to back it. Okay, I see this. I like this. Why do I like this? Oh, well, hell, they moved the ball. They were 9 of 10 on third down. Well, that makes sense. You know, the eye test told me the Broncos couldn't get off the field last week against the Chargers. Chargers rate for 10 on third down. Well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Last night, the Denver Broncos, early on, the eye test is telling me Saints can't stop these guys. They cannot stop the running game anymore. They don't want to stop the running game. They want to go home. Most rushing yards since 2018, Nick, was the Denver Broncos.
Yep. And a little bit of contribution from everybody in that regard. Estime, obviously, you can't fumble the ball. What is it, 2 fumbles on 5 carries now or something like that? 10 carries. I mean, that's obviously the sample size is small, but that's a bad rate, no doubt. And
the problem is if you're fumbling in 2 of your first 5 carries, you're not going to get a big sample size, Nick.
No, absolutely. So Estime got to work on that. I mean, still finishes with 5.8 yards per carry. He had some tough runs in that. McLaughlin, big 21-yard carry, only touched it 4 times, but 35 yards. I mean, that's kind of what we want from McLaughlin. He's not going to be a large sample size guy. Bo Nix, 10 rush attempts for 75 yards, and Williams, 14 for 88 with 2 touchdowns as well. So good to see him, find pay dirt out there.
And one of them was, hey, I found the hole and just kind of strolled in.
Yeah, the first one was, I mean, great run design, right? Like there was nobody there. So that was a great play. And Cody W.
That was the one that they highlighted the Alex Forsyth block too, where he got out to the second level. Yeah. And sealed off his linebacker. And I think McGlinchey had already cleared somebody out. And you're running to the right side. If you can run to the right side against light boxes, I got Quinn Miners and Mike McGlinchey on my side, I'm going to win. Now, I have trouble when I'm using those guys to block 4. That's where I start running into trouble. Cody coming in says the defense played pissed off and a lot of hard hits. How about a hard hat award, Nick? One of the guys that's really been showing up for me as far as coming up, and I kind of, this is the 4th guy, and he comes back every year for no money, and is he really anybody? PJ Locke is playing like he wants to keep a job for a long time. Yeah, he had all out effort, all out, laying it on the line. Stay healthy, PJ. Love the effort. Stay healthy.
Want to give a shout out to another safety for a big hit. If you guys are special teams lovers like I am, haven't had much of a choice watching Iowa the last few years. But JL Skinner, he has one big special teams hit every week. So he had one where he just killed the guy. So
you can still hit hard legally.
Yeah.
Because that was by that point I was like, all right, come on, let's get to the podcast. This game's over. Come on. Ooh.
Yeah.
Brought me out of my seat. I'm like, okay, I'm awake.
Yeah. That one, put hair on my chest, no doubt. But that was a great one. And also, we haven't talked about it too much on here, but maybe player of the game, definitely. I mean, Bonito, obviously, his speed rush out here. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I got called a Debbie Downer for, talking about the edge setting and he's not a perfect player. That's why he fell to the end of the second round. But he's got to be one of the top 5 true get-offs of any edge rusher in football right now, Scott. And one reason he fell to is because Oklahoma's playing a weird defense when they had him. He played a lot of snaps, like actually at the second level, too, underneath Alex Grimm. a lot of slanting blitzes from the linebacker spot. But man, his get off has been awesome. And yeah, he's been getting after it. But I think my defensive MVP in this game has got to be Cody Barton. Now, he did drop that interception early that I don't know what that was about. That should have been, I mean, right at him. You got to come away with it.
I mean, linebacker hands is a cliche for a reason. Now, Tyrann Mathieu, dude.
Yeah.
Catch the ball.
Yeah.
But when a linebacker drops it, what do you say? Well, that's why he's a linebacker. I mean, that's pretty standard.
But Cody Barton, great game. Again, not to be Debbie Downer, but like this was a good game for Cody Barton because you got to lead early. And the Saints, with how they were set up, the interior offensive line was completely depleted. And what's Cody Barton's issue been? He struggled coming down, filling the gaps, shedding blocks in a downhill physical run game. It's one reason that last week the Chargers are a terrible matchup for where Cody Barton wins. But he's an excellent athlete. He's great in the space. Saw him carry, I don't know if it was a receiver or a tight end, but like 30 yards down the field in phase with them. I mean, he's an awesome coverage player, Scott. So this was a good matchup for him. Maybe a little bit more finesse than, a glass eater up front, but that's okay. Especially if your defensive line is doing well and you get a lead and you are doing enough on those early downs with bodies up front. But great game from Cody Barton. Should have had 2 defensive touchdowns, if not for DJ Jones jumping off sides. But good to see him get rectified on that one and stroll in with the moonwalk, a little jog backwards for that fumble recovery for a touchdown. I don't know if it was an interception or fumble. I think they classified it as a fumble.
They ended up classifying it as a fumble.
Yeah, but Cody Barton, hell of a game.
You're talking about matchups. The matchup takes a step up next week. We're trying to chase Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson downhill. 2 weeks.
Because we got Carolina. No, we got Carolina.
That's right. Duh. Yeah. I've already moved on to I've already chalked up a win. I've already got the Broncos 5-3.
Don't do that.
You know what I'm chalking up? I'm chalking up Jasmine to Broncos for breakfast legendary status here, coming in red hot. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jasmine. So want to express some gratitude? Well, you certainly did. Have a great day, guys. Always appreciate you both. Yeah, I've said this before. I want you to just etch this into your brain. It's like, one of those things that Kennedy says all the time? There's nothing finer than winning on a Thursday night and just watching everybody else beat each other up. This team lost, that team lost. Oh no, that guy got hurt. Part of me kind of says, well, that's good for us, even though I feel bad for him. Win on Thursday night, it makes the whole weekend go better. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous weekend where Jasmine is, where I am. Jasmine, enjoy it. Thank you very much.
And how many times can we say it on here? It's a week-to-week league, and winning on Thursday after the, terrible performance overall against the Chargers on both sides of the ball, it's good to flush that one really quickly. And now Denver can have, those guys get an extended little mini bye here, hang out with their family, maybe take a little quick mini vacation to don't get in trouble. Scott, I don't know if you saw that Jay Cutler just got arrested DUI with a weapon in his car. Don't get in trouble.
About him, speaking of what are one of those, Skinnedyisms, dumbest smart guy I ever scouted.
Yeah, God, what an arm. Don't mean the gun either. But talk about a gunslinger, right? But yeah, thank you so much, Jasmine. Appreciate you so much coming in here. Also, we got Cody. Oh, sorry, Scott.
We still have Ian coming in again. Ian comes in first. Any idea why Sutton didn't get any looks?
I think that the game flow just didn't work that way, and there was no reason to force him the football when the only way I think you were losing this game is defensive turnovers and maybe a defensive score from the Saints, and Marshawn Lattimore is their only guy good right now on that side of the ball. So, why even go at him in this game? You were moving the ball at will. Good to see Franklin, Vele, all those other guys, little Jordan Humphrey get involved, Lucas Kroll. We're going to need Sutton at some point, and I think he's somebody. You see some wide receivers after a game like that, and they'd be pouting and crying. It doesn't seem like Sutton's that kind of guy. I'm sure he's very happy to celebrate the win and out there blocking on the edges. I mean, it was good. We'll need him at some point.
Sutton probably would have liked to have come inside, but this game was played inside the numbers. It was played outside in, spread it out outside in. What a difference from last year. Speaking of differences of last year, most of the yards came on slants and balls over the middle and then the running game, and where does Sutton get a lot of his work? Outside the numbers, near the hash, fade routes, out routes, et cetera, et cetera. And just again, as Nick said, there wasn't really a ton of need to go out there. You would like to still get him involved, of course, but again, going back to my JJ McCarthy talk, I'm not going to question the game plan or what's going on when you blow out a team. It worked.
Yeah.
Why I didn't need to. I didn't need to go out that way, but we'll see. Hopefully he's healthy again. Hopefully that didn't play any part of it, Ian. And we will see Sutton again for sure. And then
I don't know if you guys can see that pretty well. I did pull up Bo Nix.
Where are the numbers, Nick?
Yeah, underneath there. But I don't know if you guys can see, we only had 26 pass attempts, but only 2 traveled beyond 10 air yards. A lot of peppering to the right side of the field. I mean, almost as many completions behind the line of scrimmage as beyond it there. But you see
those
it
slants
there.
were money this time.
The slants. Yep. That was an area. Now, granted, that's going to be something that won't translate every week, right? Teams will kind of crowd the box. And that's really hard, Scott, when you also want to run the football, right? You got to get a little bit of some down the field stuff. Now, we did have that one. Looks like it went 23 air yards on the right side, as well as 19 air yards in the middle there. But again,
what was that long rollout to that long rollout where Franklin came from the other side?
I'm not sure.
He was booting. Franklin started on the left and came all the way across on a drag route and was able to hit that one. That was that long pass.
I see it.
And then that one up the middle was the ball to Crawl, where Crawl is in there, and all of a sudden, oh God, I got to get this big SOB down. I love tight ends in the backfield. I love that. Cody says, I give props to Riley Moss. This kid can play some ball. Big investment, got a redshirt year. Another one that's looking pretty good now, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, Moss had shutdown coverage in this game. I mean, he was close enough to them that he probably should have bought those receivers dinner afterwards for being that much in their personal space. But that was a hell of a game from Moss. And again, another person who, just talking about the back seven, their ability to come downhill and rally to the football was very commendable. Just a very, very aggressive coming downhill, just an aggressive style defense, which is, I mean, I understand the Vic Fangio too high safety quarter match kind of stuff, limiting the explosives. But it does kind of lend itself to a more of a passive reactionary defense. This is coming downhill, attacking and making plays. This is a pin your ears back and go hunt defense. And you're seeing that from the defensive line, 12 different guys with sacks this season, and the secondary in the tackling. I mean, you're not running as much cover 0 and cover 1 and being one of the top 5 defenses in limiting explosive plays unless your defensive backs are tackling like madmen. And this was a great example of that. Diamond Rattler coming in, $2. Thank you so much, Diamond. Hope you're doing pretty well. Appreciate you coming in. Hope you're doing well.
Michael wanted to let you know that Riley Moss went to Iowa.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, go Hawks. It's great to see an Iowa player, defensive back, finally look like they're going to hit as a boundary corner. A lot of them have been, because Iowa plays so much cover 4 and off coverage, that they translate to slot or safety. A lot of them,
frankly, Iowa's not getting the guys that run 4.3s that are playing outside. That's not who they're recruiting. Those guys are going to Ohio State,
Penn State, yeah, Notre Dame, as well in the Midwest out there, Michigan, of course. But yeah, no, Moss looks like he is going to stick at boundary corner. The big thing for me with Moss right now is stay healthy, buddy, because he dealt with injuries at Iowa. Obviously, had the hernia last season. Got on the injury report this week as well. Stay healthy, young buck. He's a heck of a player and heck of a show, Scott. It's always really good. I mean, Denver, not a perfect game by any means, but 33-10, gave up a garbage time touchdown. I thought watching Vance Joseph run cover 0 and blitzing 7 or 8, just 7 guys on that last drive too. I mean, that was not a passive coverage, even though the game was well at hand. They did not want to give up that touchdown. It was a little unfortunate to see Cedric Wilson get that there. But a great game. You got a little bit of extra time now. And as you mentioned, Sunday can be relaxing. We get to watch the Chiefs 49ers. That'll be a good game. Houston Green Bay. And of course, we got Lions Vikings too. So
that's the one I'm interested in.
Yeah,
I want to see that. How good are these Panthers? Even without Vikings, even without Aiden Hutchinson, Detroit's good. This will be the best team that Minnesota's played.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, arguably my maybe my favorite two quarterbacks in the NFL right now are C.J. Stroud and Jordan Love, just because they have a FU style of playing quarterback. They will fire it in there. They are playing quarterback at a really high level. It should be a good. Also, we got Texas, Georgia Saturday as well. So, man, it's a good one, and you can sit back and enjoy an adult beverage if that's your style or not, and have a good one. But we appreciate everyone coming in here, or coffee. Yeah, absolutely. We got a London game, so appreciate everyone. I got to get out of here. Shout out to all our super chat givers in this one. Ian coming in, Troy Boer, Miguel, Christopher Arbis, Mr. Roush, of course, as well. Did we get Mr. Roush's comment? I don't remember talking about this one.
I don't think we got that one. Sorry, Mr. Roush, our Mustang guy. I like Fords. Apologies. I drive one.
Yeah. Well, we got it here. So before we get on out of here, let's get to Mr. Roush. Sorry about that. $9.99. We really do appreciate you. He says, what do you guys think about Kroll? He's the only productive tight end in the passing game. Should be more involved since wide receivers are not reliable. Plus, it'll open up the field for everyone else. If Denver doesn't trade for a tight end, he's going to have an opportunity. I wish he was a little bit better in the pass or the run area. But right now he is a more productive and reliable player than Greg Dulcich. He's not getting the exact role of Troutman / Nate Atkins, but yeah, he can definitely be a part of the three. I don't think, he's a little bit of a jag as well to me right now. He's got some size and athleticism. Just got to work on that blocking because right now he's a negative in the inline aspect, but that he's still a young player, and good to see him out there and take advantage of his opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, the arrow's going in the right direction, right? When you start talking about young players and they're starting to contribute, that's a good thing. Saw more from Troy Franklin, saw more from Kroll. Those are good things. No, I don't know how much more we're going to see from Estime. Again, you put the ball on the ground in a Sean Payton offense, you might not see the ball again for a while. We'll see. We'll see. Sometimes the next thing they do on the next play, they hand the ball to him, but we'll see. If he's already third trying to battle his way in, that's not how you get more carries. So, but Kroll, Vele, Franklin, all contributing. And then I think, more and most importantly is the previous draft picks who are coming into their own 2 and 3 years down the line, like Bonito, like Moss, are two big reasons why this defense is wildly exceeding expectations, Nick.
I mean, wildly
exceeding expectations.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Mr. Roush. Troy, again, I mentioned there, Michael Ronquillo, of course, Jasmine, Keith Brugman, Coach Chris, Troy Morris, of course. I mean, Jasmine, $99.99. God bless you coming in and supporting us here. And of course, Michael closing us here says, great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for Breakfast. Gut reaction. Go Bo Broncos. Yeah, great game. Excited to see Denver do that. You got a chance to get to 5-3. I mean, Scott, we predicted 6 wins.
6-11.
And we've been over every single year that we've done the preseason stuff, and we've always shot over. Maybe we finally have a year where we sell them short. We definitely talk about shockingly wildly outperforming the defense. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And I mean, overall, I would set it now. It's like, okay, recalibrate based on what you've seen after half the season so far, for the most part. I don't think the offense right now is as good as I thought they might be, but the defense is, again, wildly exceeding expectations. And then there's some other teams that are better or worse on the schedule. And you look down here like, all right, I can see 9-8 out of this team pretty easy now. That's not a stretch at all. So recalibrate based on new information. And yeah, I think 9 wins is realistic. The trade deadline, Greg, is November 5th. So there's still 2 games left. So you can go 2 games and go, we're in this thing. And again, I think they'll be pretty conservative at the trade deadline, unless there's a guy, unless you can get a building block piece, somebody young, but you're not going for rentals. I'm not looking for a 32-year-old rental unless it's a pick swap. And those to me aren't trades. It's like, oh, we've got this guy and we sent them a 7th and got back a 6th in 2026. And that's not a trade. That's like they cut him and we picked him up. An actual trade as an impact player, those are still pretty rare. They make a lot of headlines, so it doesn't feel like it, but those don't happen a lot. It's the way the team is built, especially with 17 games. There's going to be 20 teams within a game of a playoff spot on the trade deadline.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. So thank you guys so much for a great show. We'll be back again on Monday. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott's at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. And of course, Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, if you're joining us on YouTube, subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like the show, and share on your social media platforms. Good to see Denver get a win. 4-3 back in the win column there, and a chance to get to 5-3 in 9 days from now. So it's all good vibes right now. Appreciate everyone. Continue to choose kindness, compassion. Have a great weekend. Go Broncos.